Hey gang, this is Dr. Jeff Garofalo, and welcome to episode 1 of Entrepreneurs Hustle. This is my very first video podcast of our very first podcast about the entrepreneur, the hustle, the daily grind, the excitement, the ups, the downs, business. We're going to be talking with successful people, people who made it big, people who didn't make it big. So we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff over the next several episodes. But episode 1 of Entrepreneurs Hustle. Welcome. I'm Dr. Jeff Garofalo, and I should let you know that I am a doctor of chiropractic. Been in the field since '99. Chiropractic school, graduated 2002. Out in the field serving patients and seeing the miracles of chiropractic since 2003. I'm in my third practice, and so today I thought in episode number 1, I'd tell you a little bit about my hustle and the ups and the downs, and tell you a little about where I came from, and some of you could relate. Some of you might have had it super easy. I didn't have it easy. I've worked for everything we have today. And so let's tell you a little bit about me and my hustle. And a lot of people think the word hustle means we're trying to scam you, but I don't mean hustle in that sense. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm a big thinker. I'm a thinker. I constantly have ideas, and I happen to be a chiropractor, which means I take my ideas and I put it in the form of chiropractic in my practices, which means I'm getting the idea of chiropractic out to as many people as possible, and we're really changing lives. And the hustle is the fact that it's like 6 o'clock in the morning right now. I've been up since 5:45, and I'll do this video podcast, and then I'll do another video, and then I'll exercise, and then I'll go to the office, and I'll see patients, and I'll work with team members, and then I'll go home tonight and be with my family. And so hustle means we're moving and we're trying to make things happen for people. So I again am Dr. Jeff. Welcome to episode 1 of Entrepreneurs Hustle, where we're going to come to you weekly and talk about some business tips, some health tips, give you some encouragement, talk about great days, talk about down days, because we all have them. I know the internet makes it look like, and Facebook makes it look like everyone has great days all the time. But you know what? That's just not the case, right? So there are days where you're pushing through and you're trying to figure it out. And we'll talk about some of my mentors and some people that I listen to and watch to kind of help you out. So let's talk a little bit about who I am and where I came from. I'm originally from Long Island, from Rockville Center, New York. Originally from Long Island, so give a shout out to Long Island. In 1999, I moved out to Chicago to go to chiropractic school, and I graduated chiropractic school, National College of Chiropractic, in 2002, and she was then my girlfriend at the time, who happens to be my wife now, Angie. We moved back to Long Island, New York to open up our very first practice. But here's the thing, I didn't intend to open up my practice to start with. As a matter of fact, I wanted a mentor. I wanted someone to help guide me, and I wanted a mentor. I wanted someone to teach me how to do what they knew how to do and do it well, which was take care of patients and how to earn a living and invest and become wealthy, and I wanted all that. And so what I did originally was I sent out over 300 letters to chiropractors in the Long Island and New York and Connecticut area. And I didn't get any letters back. I got 0 back. So I send these letters out, say, hey, I'm coming to work for you. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Teach me. And I got nothing back. As a matter of fact, I saw a couple chiropractors on some of my school breaks on Long Island, and they were telling me, don't be a chiropractor. Go be something else. It's not worth it. And I just went, wow, here I am getting ready to graduate. And now what? Well, I'm going to find somebody who's excited about it. And it looks like I picked the wrong 300 people because none of them wrote me back. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I happened to stop by a chiropractor's office not far from where I grew up. And I said, hey, at this point, I'm just looking to rent some space. And so I did. That's how I started my practice. Okay, so anyone who's a small business owner out there or a chiropractor, you know what? I started by renting space from another chiropractor. I went to the office and I rented some rooms, and I would go in on the days he wasn't there, and I would kind of move some stuff around in the office, kind of make it look like my own. And then I started, and I went out there, and some people will just say, hey, I'm out there, come see me. And I just knew that wasn't the case. So I started by trying to set up lectures and talks at the library and walking around and meeting business owners and passing my card out. And literally, I worked hard. I mean, really hard for 2.5 years. I was putting 80, 90, 100-hour weeks in. I was doing lectures. I was handing my card out. I was doing what we call screenings, getting out to farmers markets and popping up a tent and letting people know I was Dr. Jeff, the chiropractor, and learn started learning some techniques of communication and understood that in order to really get people to understand, you had to learn communication, you had to learn marketing, because really all that is psychology of getting people to look and see and watch. And so I started learning some of that stuff, and lo and behold, the practice starts growing a little bit. But I'm going to be honest with you, in 2.5 years, I never really became successful. I worked really hard and we struggled. Okay, so my wife and I had a baby, and I struggled. I mean, I was working hard. So those out there right now that are working hard and you feel like you're not making ends meet, I understand. I was out there. I was hustling. I was doing talks. I was doing lectures. I was out there doing screenings. I was meeting business owners. I was, talking to people about bringing their family in. And so I really was trying to advertise in newspapers with whatever I could afford, because in New York, newspapers at the time were super expensive. So I put little ads in, and I just tried to do whatever I could do to get my name out there. And after 2.5 years, I'll tell you, it was a struggle. I was not financially successful. I was struggling, trying to make ends meet still after 2.5 years, and I almost felt like a failure, right? I mean, you know what? You got a wife and a child, and you're out there and you're working hard, which again is another name for hustling and meeting people and doing talks and passionate about what you do, and you're not making it. And I could truly understand where a person would want to give up, because if you're having a hard time paying the bills and you're passionate about something, and many times you're thinking of giving up, I get it. I understand, right? But looking back, and I said this for years, looking back, I definitely learned some great things. That there were four things that I had at that point, and they've kind of followed me throughout. And so I had God who was leading my way. I had an awesome, supportive wife. I had passion and desire, and I had the ability and the ability to say I'm never going to give up. That relentless drive. So I had those four things, and so there were definitely some great things that came out of New York, and that's where I learned to start to read and get into the success principle in between my ears. And I want to share with you a couple things that I started with, because what you're looking at behind me is part of a library, right? So I've got my entire library over there. I've got books upon books upon books. And what I learned starting in New York was, you know what? You got to start reading, you got to start listening, you got to find successful people. And so I'll share with you first couple things I read in the whole world of success principle. And actually happened to be this paper called The Success Principles, a 30-day journey from where we are to where you want to be, by Jack Canfield and Janet Switzer. And so I don't know how I found this thing, but I found this thing, and I jumped in and I started highlighting and reading, and I started filling stuff out, and that's what started. Okay, that's what started me in the world of, hey, look, it might be tough, but I'm not going to give up. So this was a great little thing I started with: Success Principles, 30-day journey from where you are to where you want to be. This thing I picked up in 2003. It's kind of getting old, but you know what? I still look back on it. And then and this is where it might have come from, but then there was another book that I started, my very first success book, and it was called The 1 Minute Millionaire by Mark Victor Hansen and Robert G. Allen. And what it really taught me was, in order to become a millionaire, you got to have some things going on in between your head. And I think that's where it started to sink in that I needed to read, I needed to be patient, I needed to find mentors. And so these were the two first success principle books and papers that I picked up and I started to read. And then what happened was, I had a patient, and they happened to be very, 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 very wealthy. And in the book or the paper, it said, hey, find a mentor and do whatever you got to do. Sit them down for breakfast, take them out to lunch, kind of learn from them. So I asked this patient if it would be okay if I could sit down with her and her husband, if I could take them to breakfast. And now I got almost no money, and they're multi millionaires. And I said, hey, can I take you out to breakfast? He said, no, don't worry about it. We'll come by, and you know what? And actually what I did was I sat them down, I spoke with them, and then I gave them an adjustment at no charge. So I kind of bartered with them. I said, you know what? I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. Let me give you an adjustment. And that was, I've got this. I found this paper. Okay, this was the interview I did with them. And this was January 8th, 2005. And this was Steve and Elaine Kirshner from Hewlett Harbor. So if you guys are still around, thank you for sitting down. I much appreciate it. Reach out to me. Let me know you're still there. But I appreciate sitting down with me. Steve and Elaine Kirshner from Hewlett Harbor. This was January 8th, 2005. And so I'm going to give you a couple of things that I learned from these very, 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 very wealthy people. And they said that if you rent, you're existing. If you're owning, you're advancing. So own things. Don't just rent things, own things. Own your own business, own things. They said a good business person always has a plan, a financial plan, an exit plan, and a time plan. Know what you want to accomplish first. A good business person is a good figure outer. They said you got to have patience. They said you got to focus your attention on the right things. And they said be a giver. They said givers get. So just give. And they said take your expectations and be patient with your expectations. Know that it will happen. It just takes time. And then the last thing they said was work on your intuition. Be cool, calm, collective. Continue to be a giver. Do your due diligence, but listen to that little voice on the inside. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we talked about in chiropractic. That little voice on the inside. That is what we call innate intelligence, or the intelligence within you that knows how to keep your body healthy, knows exactly when things feel right, when things feel wrong. So January 8th, 2005, I do this interview with them. And it's around that time where my wife and I said, hey, we've pushed this thing here. I don't think we're supposed to be here. So we thought, God was talking to us and said, you learned some lessons. It was a good start, but I've got other plans for you, and you're not supposed to be here anymore. There's another place I've got you where you need to be. And that was back out in Chicago. So my wife and I put together a plan. Wasn't easy, but we put together a plan. And there wasn't much of a practice, but I happened to basically put in place where I would make sure that my patients I did have were in very good hands by another friend of mine who's a chiropractor who practiced not far away. I wanted to make sure that those patients I did have, although they weren't a ton, that they were put in good hands. So after about 2.5 years of pushing and struggling and working and learning some skills that I learned from these books, that was it. I told my patients, you know what, we've been called to be somewhere else. You're going to be in great hands. We did an open house at this chiropractor's office. I made sure that patients came over and introduced themselves and were in great hands. And then we left. We had, it's an interesting story, but everything fell into place that was supposed to. Didn't look like it was going to, yet when God's got a plan for you, it falls into place. So everything fell into place, and my wife and I moved out to Chicago. Now, we were 6 figures in debt, right? So we accumulated some debt in New York, trying to live and survive and trying to run a practice. We'd accumulated over 6 figures in debt, had a child, and had almost no money. I think my wife told me years ago, but didn't tell me at the time, that when we moved, we had $180 in our bank account. That was it. And I didn't know that. I mean, I had worked my butt off for 2.5 years, and we had $180 left in our bank account when we moved everything, wife, child, moved everything to Chicago. $180 in our account. And I can't remember today, but I have no idea. But we happened to get an apartment. I have no idea. With $180, I don't know how. We happened to get an apartment. And again, right before we left, about 6 months before we left, I sent out letters to 300 doctors in Illinois this time, and kind of an area where we thought we wanted to be. And I got two responses back. And I met with both the doctors, and one, they were both a great opportunity to come in and rent space. Again, I wasn't going to work for anybody. They weren't looking to hire me, but I was looking to rent space at the time because I knew that just because I didn't overly succeed in New York, I knew that I could do it. I knew I could take the skills, the entrepreneur's hustle. I could take those skills of communication and passion and drive and desire and what I'd learned about marketing and what I learned about chiropractic and what I learned about from these books and this couple. And I knew that I could be successful. So I was basically looking for some space to rent. That's what I learned. I could rent space out of another chiropractor's office pretty inexpensively and quote unquote started a business. I just needed some business cards and I had my hustle. And so in February 2005, I made my decision which office I was going to rent out of in a town named Bolingbrook, Illinois. And I'd never heard it really before. And I'd lived in Chicago and I never really heard about Bolingbrook. But it just felt right. It was that intuition that Steve and Elaine were talking about. That said, I could choose this here in Naperville or I can choose this here in Bolingbrook. Naperville's bigger, more people. Bolingbrook, never really heard of, but it just feels right. And so I entered into a contract with this chiropractor in Bolingbrook. And I was going to be renting 2 rooms and use his staff and his office. And I'd basically be my own business. Now, again, I only have $180. So we worked out a deal where I would pay him a base rent, which was pretty low. And then I would give him a percentage of my collections because starting out, I had no money to give. So if I worked and I made some money, then he would get a percentage of that. And then we kind of worked out what would happen in the future. So it's February 2005, a month later after that interview, and it's cold in Chicago, and I'm living about 45 minutes from Bolingbrook up in Warrenville. And I remember putting my long dress coat on, and every day I happened to get some inexpensive business cards. Every day I went down to Bolingbrook, and I started knocking on doors, and I started letting people know who I was, and knocking on doors, and for about the first month or 2 to 2.5 months, not much happened. Right, not much happened. I didn't really gain much traction. And then I happened to get 1 patient, and then 2 patients, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6 and 7. And then within about a 6-month period, my practice had really taken off. So I was out there hustling. Hustle means I was out there not giving up. I was talking to people. I was passionate about what I was saying. I was doing lectures again. I was, by that time, it was starting to become the spring, so I was out at farmers markets and events in the community, and, I was everywhere. I was working hard. That's the hustle, is working hard and passionate about doing it. Up early, going to bed late. I was writing newsletters, and the practice took off about 6 months. I mean, we were doing really well, and we were starting to make some money that I'd never seen before. I expected. That's why I went out to Illinois, because I talked to other chiropractors and they weren't working as hard as I was willing to work, or I was working in New York. And so I knew that I could do this. About 6 months, things really started taking off. And just under a year, the chiropractor pulls me into his office and says, "You got to get out of my office. We don't want you here." Like, what are you talking about? Staff doesn't want you here. We don't want you here. You got to get out. Well, what happened was I was making his staff work really hard because I was busier than he was, and his staff didn't like it and complained to him, and he needed his staff to run his business. So he tells me, "You either got to get out, but go to the basement, get out. We don't want you here anymore." And I'm like, "Whoa, what are you talking about? I thought things are going great. You're actually making quite a bit of money from me." "Nope, we want you out." And so it was in my contract. I had 90 days, and now I'm stuck. So I had 90 days to figure this out. And lo and behold, again, when God wants something to happen and you're willing to work for it, it falls into place. My wife is crying because we have nowhere to go. Things are going well, and bam, we get hit, slammed in the face again. Get out. You leave. You have 90 days to figure this out. So about day 60, I happened to go into an office. That there was a sign that said short-term rental office space. I go in the office, and the guy goes, "Well, we're out of everything. We don't have anything left." And I go, "Ah." And he sees the discouragement on my face, and he goes, "Well, what's going on?" So I tell him the situation. He goes, "Well, hold on a second." Makes a phone call right in front of me and says, "Yeah, my friend here." I had never met the guy. Goes, "My friend here needs a place. We do? Okay, great." This guy who I'd never met before, and I greatly appreciated his help, put me in an interim space while I went out and found space and speeded up within about 5 months. Okay, I'm in an interim space for a couple months. Within about 5 months, again, that gut feeling led me to a building. A strip center was being built, not even built yet. Within 5 months, I negotiated and I was in my own space. December of 20, December of 20, 2007, I think it was, or 2008. I think it was 2007, December 2007. I was in my own space, and within 6 months after that, the practice doubled and then quadrupled. And from that point forward, the practice just grew and grew and grew and grew to thousands of people, and we were having tons of fun. And money was coming in. We were saving money, and it was just incredible time. And then in 2017, my wife and I get the calling again. Hey, you're supposed to move on and do something else. So the hustle takes on again, and we had happened to at that point we're going to move my wife back to Indiana, small town Indiana, and we sold our practice. And I went through that whole process, not knowing what selling a business would be like, and that was pretty cool. I learned a whole bunch of stuff, and when the check hits your account, it's really cool. And then we'd bought a building, and we'd remodeled a building, and we'd opened up practice in Shipshewana, Indiana. And so now I'm on my third practice, and we're hustling. You know what? We're hustling still. We're an entrepreneur, meaning I've got great ideas that we quickly put into the practice or we put into life, and we hustle and we see how it works. And the hustle means we're always trying to improve other people's lives. So, again, my name is Dr. Jeff, and this is Entrepreneurs Hustle, Episode 1. A couple things, again, we'll talk about here is in 2003, I started to read some cool things. And the first thing I ever read that really got me into the success principle or mind was The Success Principles by Jack Canfield and Janet Switzer. And then The 1 Minute Millionaire by Mark Victor Hansen and Robert Allen. And then I sat down with some very wealthy people. And one of the things I also learned was to put together what we call entrepreneur success files. And so what I do is I read magazines, and then I create files of stuff. So I've got my files of stuff, as you can see. You open up, and I read stuff, and I pull stuff out, and I put it off to the side because I'm building a library, not only for me, but for my kids, on how to be great entrepreneurs, how to be wealthy, how to give, how to love, how to serve. And so in episode 1, the biggest thing I want you to understand is that if we can do it, you can do it. And that it's a hustle. And it's good times, it's challenging times. One of the people that I love to listen to is Tony Robbins. And he said, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And so when things don't look like they're going that great, try to pull the lesson from it. What's going on? How can I make this better? What am I learning from this? And so this is Dr. Jeff, chiropractor. This is episode 1 of Entrepreneurs Hustle. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be coming to you again with successful people. We'll be doing interviews. I'll be doing some book reviews. We'll be doing a whole bunch of great stuff to provide you great content, whether you're just starting a business or whether you have a huge business. I've owned 3 businesses now. I'm involved in real estate. I'm involved in the internet. I'm involved all over the place. So hope that you're having a great day today. And if not, I want you to remember, life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you, like Tony Robbins says. This is Dr. Jeff, Entrepreneur's Hustle, Episode 1.